Nope.
So we had some technical difficulties with the dump truck.
They're not technical, they're just difficult.
Yeah, you're right. They're not technical, they're just difficult.
Technically, it's not running. And we're just gonna have to order a letter off.
Either that or go get some buckets, 5-gallon buckets, and put it. Yeah. This ain't gonna work.
Nope, this is a bad deal.
But we're not stranded.
Okay, we're gonna edit this clip when we come up to the stoplight. We did stop.
Just like that.
So guys, welcome back to the old Southern IA. We're back to real farming because, Colt, can you believe that some people did not see our pumpkin farming as real farming? Can you believe that?
I didn't have my pliers on, that's probably why.
Yeah, the pumpkin patch is now open. The videos regarding the pumpkin patch, other than basically one, where you guys are gonna have one last video of pretty much encompassing the 4 months in between purchasing the ground to building the building and everything like that, to bringing an agritourism farm business to fruition. That video will be still coming to you guys, and then most likely all of their pumpkin patch videos will probably be relocated to a different YouTube channel, since it doesn't seem like the majority of the audience enjoys watching the pumpkin patch videos. But some of you do, so we will, when we get to that point, let you know what's going on with that. But now I can get back to doing actual row croppy stuff and hay stuff, which we've had to do, and we're getting really close to starting harvest here. Actually, we could probably start at the end of the week this week. We've got a project or two that we got to take care of. We were mowing some hay here yesterday. Andrew's still working on that right now. These green bins that we're sitting at, there's been a project that we need to get done for drainage wise over there. And then also a video that I've been wanting to do for you guys is that's the GSI bin that we built last year, or I built last year. Want to go through what the economics were on owning a grain bin like that and how did it shape out. It was a really interesting year in the grain markets. It was pretty much a bear market, so probably not the best example of a year owning a grain bin, but there was still some advantages to it, and still really happy that we had it. We were gonna have some really awesome dump trucking going to get rock footage, except for when I brought the dump truck back from the patch this morning. Ran great, except for then when it saw Colt, it decided to not run. So it's got some type of fuel issue. And the thing's so darn simple, I don't understand how to work on it. We changed the fuel filter, and that's the only trick I know. But grain bin, drainage, work today. Back to farming.
Oh, hold on. Tires.
So first on the project list is this lovely swale we have going on here. My dad dug in to get the drainage away from the motor a little bit better. We're going to lay in some 4-inch dual wall. I think one of them or two of them is supposed to be perforated. Just one of them's perforated. Oh, well, we're gonna put the perforated one there with a little bit of a sump to let the water in. You guys will see that. So perforated is the one with the slits. Yeah. Then we're just gonna bring in some 2-inch clean rock and throw it on top, so that the water seeps right down through there. It's not a muddy mess here for the rest of harvest. I'm gonna cut that out a little bit better with the bucket real quick. So we've expanded the depth of the trench here a little bit and got it going down the hill. My plan is to kind of hootie-kai myself together a drainage package deal here. I'm going to use that as kind of like the T, as a Hickenbottom deal. A little bit of a riser, put a cap, which, where's my caps? Caps. Put a cap in the end of it, drill some holes into it so it lets water down. Kind of do the same thing right there. And then we'll lay in the pipe and then backfill it with the 2-inch gravel. Kind of a French drain style deal to collect the water that's coming actually all the way from over there in the gravel and let it exit out down over there for future bin to deal with. It was in do you know where the tape is? Is it in that internal connector? Is that where the tape ended up? So you can tape this here. Nope, just around the outside of it.
Yeah, we're poking holes in that.
And then we go around the bottom side of that. So there you can see I just used my knife to poke some holes on the end of that. We're completely making this up as we go. Keep pulling back. We don't want further back. There you can kind of see how we're moving that one along. Hey, cool. Let's set that one down there, yeah. So you hold that so that's like straight up and down. The T is. There you go. Alright, that's what we needed. So there is this part of the project, but Colt's gonna have to leave here to go catch a horse pretty soon. Well, he's getting a horse delivered because he breaks to ride horses or rides the brakes. Something with horses. He makes them so you can ride them. So there's a little inlet, French drained. I'll clean that up a little bit better. But basically now, this is instead of a mud pit, it's a rock pit. And like I said, not perfectly done right here, but I'll keep working on it and you guys will see the finished part of that at the end of the video. We're gonna go work on the next part of that, but for you guys, we're gonna talk about the financial aspects of what that bin cost me last year and how it's paid for itself. Again, it was an interesting year to see that, so let's dive on in. So good thing we actually kind of used some YouTubery there, and I actually went and finished this project, which you guys will see after we chat here. But we got rained out later that day, and now it's actually a day or two later, and we caught even more rain, so I can pause and show you this real quick. But there's no longer a moat there, and but you guys are going to see here in a second. My standing pond back here is gone as well. But let's talk the financials of the GSI bin here. So these are going to be numbers and how I looked at how the grain storage paid for me. Okay, so if you guys remember back to videos, and I do have some notes here. So this bin was built last year. My wet bin is a 18,500 bushel bin. The total cost of the project was $2,000, so $82,000, and it's going to sprinkle on us again. That actually includes my electrical right there, but one of the expenses that you would have every year with that is the actual cost of the electrical for the grain bin. So I'm not going to add that into my expenses, but I did pay for the electrical in that, so we're going to roll those two. So if you really wanted to run these and you had electricity there, you might have to figure out, hey, what's it cost to actually add the electricity to that grain bin? You guys can do the math on that. I'm leaving it out. So with that, we're also going to assume that the grain bin was completely filled up. We didn't get it completely filled last year. We were in a drought, but we're going to use the mathematics on the 18,500 bushels being completely filled up in the bin. So my payment every year on this grain bin on 10 years is $10,800, which comes out to about 58 cents per bushel that I have to pay on that grain before it goes in the grain bin. On top of that, I also am going to charge myself basically 10 cents to put it in there and 10 cents to take it out, because you got to run tractors, augers, have those things. Luckily I use my dad's auger, so, but lots of times, sometimes hooked up to my tractor, so I don't know who's winning that battle. But anyways, we got 10 cents for going in, 10 cents for going out. So if we're talking about this, that means before I actually make any money on that grain that goes in that grain bin, I have to capture 78 cents. Kind of stiff. Like I said, the storage was built in 2022, so a lot of the times around July you can tell if you're going to have a crop. So we're going to look at July 22 crop prices that you could get for the fall, like so December corn in July of 2022. It's maybe when you can figure out if you're going to have a crop. And all my prices are going to be coming from Cargill and Eddyville. Cargill usually has really pretty good bids. So actually it's November corn. Well, I got both of them here, but basically harvest price on corn, if you wanted to sell everything in July of 2022 when we didn't know what kind of crop we were going to have, like we had drought stress, and we had pretty crappy crop in 2022. November corn was $6 to $6.03, kind of depending upon what time frame you want to deliver in, and December corn was $6.14. Now I'm not going to explain to you what December, November corn time frames and things like that. We're going to leave that alone for right now. We're just going to try and keep it simple. So that basically means that we're going to start with, if I didn't have a grain bin, I would have been able to contract my grain at that point in time, because I didn't have anywhere for storage with it, at $6 to $6.03, or that's basically how to sell it off the combine. Now, with that being said, crop prices luckily did go up in through the rest of the year in 2022. So our harvest price in July, or in 2022, ended up being, pause on that. So basically, even with the grain bin right there, now I said I was going to charge myself 20 cents to put it in the grain bin and take it back out. Realistically, it's probably not there, but if you looked at it from the spread between 6 cents or $6 and $6.14, basically you could pay yourself 14 cents just to take it into the bin and take it back out. And then one of the other things about grain bins that's really darn nice is that it really improves the harvest capabilities. Like, you can harvest more acres in a day if you're not sitting in line waiting to unload your grain at the elevator or the co-ops. So that's an unwritten benefit of the grain bin. We're just going to leave that part alone too, but it is a real benefit. More acres in a day, being more productive with a grain bin. So basically, if you even wanted just to say, I'm going to sell it in December anyways, you can get 14 cents by putting it in, taking it back out, and then also gain the harvest, speed of that. So we'll say it's worth the 7 cents, and we're back to the 10 cents to put it in and take it out. Anyways, okay. Moving on to the next sheet of paper. Anyways, so the harvest price actually in 2022 went up to, in November, $6.87. So we went from $6 to $6.87. And what did I say I needed to gain to put grain into the grain bin? I needed to gain 78 cents. So basically, at that point in time, I was up, what is that, 5 cents? 78, I was up 8 cents, somewhere along there. Basically, by having a plan of where I could store my grain without having to forward contract it, I already gained what it was costing me to put up that bin. Now, that sounds fine and dandy, but this year, 2023, was a bear market. So that actually moves things into a very interesting aspect, because storing grain started to not look very good as we moved out throughout the year. So 9 cents, sorry, 9 cents. So basically, by not selling it and that grain bin being full, netted $1,600 by having it here. Like I said, bear market this year. So we're gonna look at basically kind of around the first of the month for what the crop prices were doing, or you could get for spot grain in Eddyville at Cargill. So in January, actually we came off of the harvest prices, and in January you could get $6.80. So basically the grain lost 7 cents for being in the grain bin. Not very good. So not very good. Luckily, we got a little bit of a jump back up here, and in February, we brought it back up to $6.80. So again, now we're going to be talking about Cargill and Eddyville, and I'm going to be looking at about the first of the month, and we're going to be talking about what it was costing to store the grain. The other thing you got to think about when it costs to store the grain that I'm not going to figure in, because I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible, and when you start talking about numbers, it gets kind of confusing, especially with a dude that mixes up his numbers. So we're going to leave that out. You got to think about what the interest that it was costing you to store grain this year, especially when our interest rates are getting higher up. That's the factor that you have to add in, but you can do that yourself, because guess what? Everybody's interest rates are different. Too high. That's what they are have in common, I can tell you that. Anyways, so actually, it started to look, after we came off the harvest highs, that it looked like, hey, we're going backwards. So in January, crop prices you could get for about $6.80. Now that's the beginning of the month. That's where we're going to kind of look at. So $6.80. That means that we lost 7 cents by holding grain. Not the way you want to be going. Now, fortunately, we got a little bit of a bump up, and our grain back in February went up to $6.87. Now, luckily for me, I even got my load right there. That's where the majority of the grain that I sold. Well, if you look at the sweatshirt right here, Molly and I did take on a pumpkin patch opportunity this year, so I needed the cash, and I was going to try and buy a piece of ground, aka I dumped all my grain to bring in the income. Luckily, it worked out for me this year. So, $6.87, we brought it back up, where I actually made a little bit of money by owning and having this grain bin this year. Good for me, plus the advantages of harvest. So the other thing that we're going to leave out about this is that there is probably times that Cargill sent out a quick ship bid, which means that it was like 24 hours or less. We'll pull it at any point in time, but we'll put out a hot bid because we need the grain. That means you need to be sending it out right then and there. I don't have those numbers, so I can't tell you when those actually hit the best. But anyways, for me, it financially worked out to have the grain bin and grain storage this year. So we'll move forward. In March, we saw a big setback. Again, bear market pretty much all year long, except for when we were having a drought scare in there. Now we've got some worse prices. Anyways, March, we went to $6.31. April, $6.73. So we swung basically 50 cents, or wait, that's 40 cents. 40 cents in a month. Pretty volatile right there. And again, when I talk 40 cents, if we look at a semi that's sitting right over there, you're thinking $400 per load. Just think $400 per load for every semi-load. If that helps at all, anybody. So we then, in May, we swung back down, $6.38. Now the drought scare starts to come in, because actually we had good planting this year, so we saw the dip there. Drought scare comes in June, and in June we got up to $6.84. Not quite the highest there. Actually, I got the highest day written down. I'll tell you what that is when we get to it. But again, guys had the opportunity to capture and make the profits that they needed for the grain storage in there. So it's grain storage, again, holding until June, which is typically a really good time to hold your grain for. June, July, would have worked out again this year if you didn't hold on forever, because guess what? The prices dipped drastically. Shortly after that, by July, you could get $5.82. That means we lost $1 a bushel in a month, which means per semi-load, $1,000 per semi-load that came out. So if that grain bin was filled, that's $18,500 that grain bin is worth less in 1 month. Bear markets. Also farming. So August, we lost another 10 cents basically. It was $5.72. And then coming into September, it's $5.66. So we didn't quite lose 10 cents there, but we're just sliding backwards continually. So there was marketing opportunities. It was on your shoulders to be a good marketer, but even in the bear market year, you could have still paid for the storage, and it worked out for me. Thankful I did it. Going to be another good year to be putting grain into storage. Fingers crossed. But anyways, continuing forward, the day that you had the highest opportunity to sell grain, I believe, was on, give me 1 second, on June 20th, you could get $6.94 for your grain. $6.94. So, which means that, what did I say? Our base price we looked at was $6, and our base price we looked at was $6. It was $6.94, and what did I need? 78 cents to pay for it. So I basically had 15-ish cents or something like that I could have made extra on top of that. It was a good deal. So hopefully that kind of makes sense on how grain storage pays, on top of the harvestability aspects. And when I say harvestability aspects, how it helps you speed up harvest. That to me is very big. So haul it on your own time when you want to haul it, good conditions, all those good things. Don't sit in line at the elevator. Let's get back to work. Is that working or just causing a mess?
Well, laying on the concrete pad on the backside of your trailer.
That ain't what we want. So this is the next project right here. Here's the 3-phase box, which we just talked about, that we brought in. We dug out the power outlets to here, so we can bring power this way through the bins already, but it's settled and it's holding water, so we're going to fill it with a rock so that it drain for us. That's it, I'm on the foundation. Think I need more, or you think that makes it?
This takes it out right here, what I threw in with the shovel. I think if we kind of spread it out, I think we'll be fine.
Okay, alright. Better, huh?
A lot more better.
Well, if we quit right now, you got time to take me back to Seymour, you think? I think it's right about 4 o'clock.
Are they gonna have it done tonight?
Yeah. They said they get it done.
That's 4 o'clock. Yeah, it's 4 o'clock right now, that works.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and tidy stuff up later. Now you can get into town. So that's going to finish up this video, guys. Harvest is here. Harvest is right around the corner. We got the pumpkin patch opened up. Everything's going good. Having good turnouts with that. We will be doing one last video, like I said earlier in the video. But what the combine is going to say this year, we're hoping we might get a surprise. A little doubtful. But you guys will be knowing regular, scheduled iowANFarmer videos from the good old Southern IA. We'll be rolling back in hot and heavy here in the next week or two. We'll see you guys then. So, we're also not going to be talking about in this that there was probably times that Cargill or anywhere sent out a quick bid where you have to basically,
You just said quick
quick ship bid.
You said